Hey, it's Dave. Um, just real quick, this is the same. This is a continuation from the same chapter, chapter 8. I misspoke and said chapter 3 earlier. It's chapter 8 of the book of Amos. Here's where we read a minute ago. Okay, remember, they were falsifying the balances. I thought this was very interesting because I'm going to have to bring something else to your attention here. Here's what the evil are saying. They want to buy, verse 6, they want to buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes. That means they want you to get to work for them, and they'll give you shoes for payment. Probably will even take that away from you. And then they want to sell the refuse of the wheat. That means the rotted wheat. If you remember the trust busters of Teddy Roosevelt, he had to bust the trust because the food companies were selling rotted food. Remember that in our country? That's when all the tycoons take over and they make it so bad. That's why you must have unity of the people. You must have all the workers getting together. Okay, you have to have all these kind of protections against the rich. Let's see, verse 7, the Lord hath sworn by the excellency of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their works. That means God's keeping account of the wicked. He's listening. Verse 8, shall not the land tremble for this? In other words, this bad behavior is making the people in bad way. And everyone mourns that dwells inside or therein, and it shall rise up wholly like a flood, as a flood, and it shall be cast out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. Now I'm gonna interpret that. See the star. That's the promise of what He's going to do. Now watch this. People say, well, why is there all these extra letters? Why are all these extra have and have-nots and hath and thee and thou and it and that and all these extra words in the Bible? Have you noticed them? Remember yesterday I made a big deal about the word it. You think that's not a word that the super intelligent people had caught on to a long time ago? Look at it. Let's see. Shall not the land tremble for this, and every one mourn that dwelleth therein? And it, see it? It shall rise up wholly as a flood, and it shall be cast down and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. So what is it? It shall be. What does that mean? Well, you got to go back another verse and look a little more closely. It's talking about them changing the law. IT today is becoming the new law. They're racing. Have you heard of artificial intelligence, folks? Have you heard of information technology? Now, those things in and of themselves have some value because IT is a system that helps the electronic machines and do their work, but those have to serve the people. They're just a tool. Now the rich people are trying to make what is called a closed loop system so that IT becomes a law. When that happens, they're going to basically usurp the court systems, right? They're going to try to take the power away from even having a valid justice system that involves people, and they'll bring everything into IT. Remember in the Revelation they call that the mark of the beast. Well, IT is going to be, God has taken notice of this, and he says IT is going to rise up holy as a flood, and IT shall be cast out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. Now, that's prophecy, because this is a minor prophet. It's the book of Amos. So this is a minor prophet. And when you read this, you have to take into consideration what it's saying for future references. Okay? IT shall be cast wholly as out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. Now, what was the flood of Egypt? Well, if you're talking about the flood of bad law, where Egyptians, remember, the Egyptians were in terrible bondage. They were in terrible bondage to the Pharaoh, and Moses had to come and save them, didn't he? So IT, as the law of the land was unbearable, just like it's becoming here. Right? If you read verse 6 and verse 7 again, you're going to see that there was very bad practices. They were driving the people into slavery. All right? So now let's compare what God does with his IT. Because God is the first one who created IT, didn't he? He gave the law to Moses on the 2 stones, the 10 Commandments, right? Didn't he? So now let's see what the good news is about the IT. It changes here, watch. He's going to bring the IT holy as a flood in verse 8. And that horrible law and system is going to be the undoing or the drowning of that society that is using it. Okay? As by the flood of Egypt. You remember? It wasn't the Egyptians, it was the Egyptians who were punished. The ones that didn't follow Moses with the Israelites out of Egypt, remember? And the flood took out that army that went against Moses. So look at, now this is the really good news, because that was the bad part. Now watch the good part. 9, and IT shall come to pass in that day, that very day when Moses saved him, this is what happened. Saith the Lord, that that's talking about wisdom, God, will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. That sounds like bad news, doesn't it? But what that really is talking about, I will cause the sun to go down at noon. What sun? What sun? Jesus. Okay? You have to understand that everything is connected in this book. Jesus died. And when he died, the whole day darkened, didn't it, at noontime? And he darkened the earth in the clear day. See the star? The star, right there. That is that tells us that this is about Jesus. Everything with a star is referring. Okay, but that's hope literature. That means when we have the gospel, we're going to finally be done with this system. But we've had the gospel for quite a while, and the United States kind of became the most powerful country in the world through a Judeo-Christian ethic and lawmaking system, didn't it? Where the balances were just all over the world. We were trying very hard to be a good society. We still had our criminal element. Yes, we did. But all in all, we rose to power based on our good behavior, just like David's kingdom did, Solomon's did. Okay, so remember, all these things come in cycles, and that's why it's important to understand history and understand wisdom literature and figure out these riddles in these books of prophecy. It takes time to sit down and read it, study it out. But anyway, this is getting a little bit too long, but I'm going to close real quick. You have to think now, if you're challenged about understanding how warnings are to be heeded as a way to stop the damage, that's the value of reading the Bible and wisdom literature. When you cast this kind of IT away, the good law, you end up with devastation, and these old habits of greed come back. So that's what I want to tell you about. Okay, the IT. I don't think I explained it adequately enough, but we'll visit it again, and I'll get that point across a little better next time, I hope. Okay, take care.